The quantum sensors aboard the galactic research vessel Eternal Curiosity screamed to life, startling Chief Researcher Vixterra from her meditation cycle. Her crystalline form sparkled as she rushed to the observation deck, trailing stardust in her wake. The impossible had happened. Another species had achieved faster-than-light travel without being discovered during their development phase. "Report," she commanded, her voice resonating through the ship's neural network. Her second-in-command, Kizoth, a being of pure energy contained within an advanced environmental suit, pulsed with excitement. The signal originated from the unexplored sector 7249, specifically from a Class 13 death world we've been monitoring from a safe distance. The inhabitants have somehow managed to punch through space-time using a completely unorthodox method. Vixterra's crystalline structure vibrated with concern. Class 13 death worlds were considered uninhabitable by the Galactic Council's standards. The fact that any species could evolve there, let alone achieve space travel, defied all known scientific principles. "Show me the data," she ordered, her facets refracting light in complex patterns that expressed her unease. The holographic display materialized, showing a small blue-white planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. As the data streamed across the screen, Vixterra's crystalline form began to dim, a sign of deep distress among her kind. "This can't be correct," she whispered. "Run the atmospheric analysis again." Kizoth's energy form flickered apologetically. "We've verified it 17 times, Chief. The planet's atmosphere is primarily nitrogen and oxygen, a highly reactive mix that should be impossible to sustain life. The surface is 70% covered in corrosive dihydrogen monoxide, and the crust is fractured into constantly moving tectonic plates. The magnetic field is so strong it regularly causes massive plasma discharges in the atmosphere. And you're telling me the dominant species achieved space travel while evolving in these conditions?" Vixterra's voice carried the weight of disbelief. "Not just space travel," Kizoth corrected, their energy patterns shifting to display new data. "They've developed a method of FTL travel that deliberately tears holes in space-time and somehow prevents them from expanding into universe-ending catastrophes. They call it the Hawking Drive, named after one of their theoretical physicists." The research vessel's eye chimed in, its neutral tones carrying a hint of fascination. "Chief, I've completed my analysis of their historical data broadcasts. You may want to review this immediately." The holographic display shifted, showing images that made the entire crew stop their tasks to stare. Humans, as they called themselves, were pursuing scientific discovery even while their planet actively tried to kill them. They conducted experiments during ice ages, built civilizations in deserts, and established research stations in locations where the atmospheric pressure could crush most species. "They're endothermic," noted Tilara, the ship's xenobiologist, her tentacles writhing in agitation. "But instead of dying in hot climates, they developed a method of thermal regulation that involves secreting their own water onto their skin. They call it sweating and can maintain it for days." Vixterra watched footage of humans running ultramarathons across scorching deserts. "Days? That's impossible. No species can maintain homeostasis under such conditions for that long." "That's not even the most concerning part," Kizoth interjected. "Their neural architecture is unlike anything we've encountered. They can recognize patterns in complete chaos, form social bonds with virtually any species they encounter, and their problem-solving capabilities appear to be exponential rather than linear." The display showed humans domesticating predators, creating art from random shapes, and developing technologies at a pace that seemed to defy natural law. But what truly caught Vixterra's attention was their space program. "They reached their satellite with chemical rockets?" she asked incredulously. "Without anti-gravity technology? Without inertial dampeners?" "Yes," Kizoth confirmed. "They essentially strapped themselves to containers of explosive materials and hoped their calculations were correct. Their early space pioneers had a saying, ad astra per aspera, through hardship to the stars. Vixterra's crystalline form pulsed with a deep blue light, a sign of profound contemplation among her species. They don't overcome obstacles, she realized. They absorb them into their definition of normal. Look at their entertainment broadcasts. The crew watched in stunned silence as humans participated in activities that would be considered survival situations for most species: climbing frozen mountains, diving into oceanic trenches, jumping from high altitudes for recreation. "Chief," the ship's eye interrupted, "I'm detecting an incoming transmission." "They've spotted us." Vixterra straightened her crystalline form, trying to project calm authority. "They've seen through our cloaking technology." "No," the eye replied. "They apparently noticed a slight gravitational lensing effect from our drive system and decided to say hello. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, including several we didn't know could be used for communication." The transmission clarified, revealing a human female in what appeared to be a formal uniform. Her expression was open, curious, and somehow both professional and warmly inviting, a combination that shouldn't have been possible. "Greetings, unknown vessel," the human said, speaking in perfectly accented galactic standard. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon Breaker. We noticed you studying us and thought it might be more efficient to simply introduce ourselves. Would you like to meet in person? We make excellent coffee, though we should probably warn you that it's technically a mild neurotoxin. But don't worry, it only affects us in large doses, and we drink it anyway because we like it." The entire bridge crew of the Eternal Curiosity stared at the transmission in silence. Vixterra's crystalline form cycled through several colors before settling on a determined white. "Send a response," she ordered. Tell them we accept their invitation, but request safety protocols for the meeting, and ask them to define what they consider large doses of neurotoxins, just to be safe." As the message was sent, Vixterra couldn't shake the feeling that the Galactic Council's classification system was about to undergo a significant revision. Any species that could evolve on such a planet, achieve space travel through sheer determination, and casually consume neurotoxins for pleasure was either going to be the galaxy's greatest ally or its most terrifying neighbor. Either way, she had a feeling the universe would never be quite the same again. The Drachnid Federation's War Council chamber hung in the void of space, a massive structure of living metal that pulsed with dark energy. Supreme Commander Vexthor, his scales gleaming under the artificial light, studied the holographic display of Earth with disdain. "So this is the planet that has the Galactic Council in such disarray," he rumbled, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of his native tongue. "A mere death world that somehow spawned a spacefaring race." His chief strategist, Zira, slithered forward on her gravity disk. "Supreme Commander, I must advise caution. Our intelligence suggests these humans are not to be underestimated. They have already formed alliances with several major species, including the Crystalline Collective." Vexthor's secondary hearts pulsed with amusement. The Crystalline Collective. Those timid researchers. They wouldn't know military strategy if it crystallized before their facets. He gestured to the tactical display. "Show me their defensive capabilities." The hologram shifted, displaying Earth's orbital defense network. Zira manipulated the controls with her neural tendrils, highlighting key points of interest. "Their technology is unconventional. They've developed weaponry based on principles our scientists claim shouldn't work. Their primary defense platforms use something they call kinetic bombardment, essentially dropping metals from orbit." "Primitive," Vexthor scoffed. "They throw rocks." "Rods of tungsten accelerated to relativistic speeds," Zira corrected. "Our simulations suggest a single impact carries the force of a tactical antimatter device without the radiation signature. They call them rods from God." The Supreme Commander's scales rippled with irritation. "Send them our demands. I tire of this discussion." Across the void, in Earth's Combined Defense Force headquarters beneath Mount Cheyenne, General Maya Rodriguez read the Drachnid ultimatum with an expression that made her aide wonder if she was about to laugh or swear. They want us to surrender our FTL technology and accept their protection because our planet is too dangerous for us to govern ourselves, she asked, her voice carrying that peculiar tone of calm that veteran officers recognized as the prelude to a storm. Yes, ma'am, her aide confirmed. They've given us 48 Earth hours to comply. The general stood, walking to the massive screen displaying Earth's defense grid. The network of satellites, stations, and platforms represented humanity's determination to never again be at the mercy of forces beyond their control. "Get me the crystalline collective's ambassador," she ordered. "And someone find me coffee. The good stuff from Colombia. Not that synthesized garbage." Minutes later, Ambassador Vixtera's crystalline form shimmered on the main display. "General Rodriguez, we received the Drachnid transmission as well. The collective stands ready to honor our alliance." "Thank you, Ambassador, but that's not why I called." The general took a sip of her coffee, savoring the aroma. "I need to understand our enemy. Your species has dealt with them before." Vixtera's form shifted to a concerned violet hue. "The Drachnids are apex predators from a high-gravity world. They believe themselves to be the natural rulers of space. Their entire society is built on the principle of strength through dominance." "Classic bullies," Rodriguez mused. "And how do they typically react when challenged?" Vixtera paused, her crystalline structure vibrating with sudden understanding. "General, what are you planning?" Rodriguez smiled, the expression remarkably similar to that of Earth's ancient apex predators. "Tell me, Ambassador, has anyone ever actually stood up to these Drachnids? Really stood up to them?" "No," Vixtera admitted. "Most species either submit or are conquered. The Drachnids have never faced a prolonged conflict because their initial show of force usually proves sufficient." "Well then," Rodriguez said, setting down her coffee cup with a decisive click, "I believe it's time they learned about human stubbornness. Send a message to the Drachnid Supreme Commander. Tell him," she paused, considering her words carefully, "tell him that humanity respectfully declines their generous offer of protection, as we've grown quite fond of our dangerous little death world, and would prefer to keep managing it ourselves." Vixtera's form flickered with alarm. "They will view that as a challenge." "Good," Rodriguez replied, "because that's exactly what it is. While you're at it, transmit them some historical files about the Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of Stalingrad, and the Emu War." "The Emu War?" Vixtera asked, confused. "Just trust me on this one," Rodriguez smiled. "Oh, and make sure to include footage of honey badgers. They should know what they're dealing with." In the Drachnid War Council chamber, Vexthor received Earth's response with growing rage. His scales shifted to deep crimson as he processed not just the rejection, but the casual dismissal of his authority. "They dare," he roared, his crystalline command throne cracking under his claws. "They dare to mock the might of the Drachnid Federation." Zyra reviewed the transmitted historical files with mounting concern. "Supreme Commander, these records, they show humans fighting against impossible odds, often to the last individual. And this creature, this honey badger they included, it appears to be a small predator that routinely survives conflicts with creatures 10 times its size through sheer tenacity. They compare themselves to a primitive beast," Vexthor snarled. "No, sir," Zyra replied quietly. "I believe they're warning us. These humans, they don't just survive on their death world. They don't just endure. They thrive on challenge, and I fear we may have just given them one." Vexthor rose to his full height, towering over his subordinates. "Launch the attack. Full invasion force. Show these humans what true power looks like." As the Drachnid fleet began to move, General Rodriguez stood in her command center, watching the massive enemy formation approach on the tactical display. She took another sip of coffee, her expression serene. "You know," she said to no one in particular, I don't think they understood the Emu War reference at all. Shame. It's always good to learn from history. She keyed her comm system. All units, initiate Operation Thermopylae. Let's show our guests why humanity's greatest victories have always come when someone told us something was impossible. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as two forces prepared for collision. An overwhelming alien armada that had never known defeat, and a species that had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them daily, fought wars against birds and won, and considered drinking mild poison for pleasure a normal part of their morning routine. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had thrived on their death world, not because they were the strongest, fastest, or most advanced, but because they simply refused to accept defeat as an option. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 100 species argued in their native tongues while translation matrices struggled to keep up. At the center of the storm, Captain Sarah Chen of the Horizon Breaker stood calmly, waiting for the pandemonium to subside. "Are you seriously suggesting," began X-Troll, the gaseous representative of the Nebula Collective, "that we join your species in open warfare against the Drachnid Federation?" "Not suggesting," Sarah replied, taking a deliberate sip from her coffee mug. "Inviting. There's a difference." The chamber erupted again until Ambassador Vixterra's crystalline form pulsed with a brilliant light that demanded attention. "Perhaps," she chimed, "we should let Captain Chen explain humanity's strategy." Sarah placed her mug on the podium, the simple ceramic vessel looking oddly out of place among the advanced technology surrounding her. "The Drachnids believe in strength through dominance, but they've never encountered a species that defines strength differently. Humanity survived on Earth, not because we were the strongest, but because we learned to work together." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized, showing early human hunting parties working in groups to bring down larger prey. Our earliest ancestors weren't the fastest or strongest predators. We succeeded because we cooperated, communicated, and adapted. And how does this primitive history lesson apply to our current situation? Asked a representative of the Silicon consciousness, their optical sensors whirring with skepticism. "Because," Sarah smiled, "we never stopped evolving that strategy." The display shifted to show modern human achievements: international space stations, global research networks, multinational engineering projects. Every major advancement in human history came from collaboration. When we work together, we become more than the sum of our parts. In the back of the chamber, a shadowy figure stirred. The representative of the Void Walkers, being so advanced they were rarely seen at council meetings, leaned forward. "You propose an alliance not just of necessity, but of synthesis." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "The Drachnids expect us to fight like them. Hierarchical, rigid, predictable. Instead, we'll fight like humans, adaptable, innovative, and above all, cooperative." At that moment, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The main display showed a massive Drachnid fleet emerging from FTL near a populated binary system. "The Proxima colonies," someone gasped. "They're targeting civilian populations." Sarah's expression hardened. "No, they're making a mistake." She tapped her comm unit. "General Rodriguez." They took the bait. The display split, showing the general in her command center. "Confirmed, Captain. Operation Honeypot is a go. Ambassador Vixterra, are your people in position?" The crystalline being's form pulsed with affirmation. "The collective's refraction arrays are ready, though I still don't understand how this plan will work." "That's the beauty of it," Sarah grinned. "It works because they don't understand it either." Across space, the Drachnid fleet approached their target with supreme confidence. Supreme Commander Vexthor watched from his command throne as his ships moved into attack formation. "Status report," he demanded. Zyra consulted her neural interface. No significant defensive presence detected. The human colonies appear largely unprotected. As expected, Vexthor rumbled. "These humans talk of strength, yet they leave their weakest exposed. Launch the first wave off." He never finished the order. Space itself seemed to crystallize around his fleet, refracting light in impossible ways. Ship sensors screamed as they tried to compensate for the suddenly altered physics of space-time. "What is this?" he roared. Through the crystalline distortion came humanity's response. Dozens of ships emerged from FTL, but they weren't the expected human warships. They were a bizarre amalgamation of technologies. Human Hawking drives merged with crystalline collective refraction tech, nebula collective sensor arrays integrated with silicon consciousness processing cores, and weapons systems that combine multiple species theories of physics in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "Impossible," Zyra whispered. "They've integrated different species technologies in less than 2 weeks." "Not just integrated," came General Rodriguez's voice over all frequencies. "Synthesized. You see, Commander Vexthor, while you were preparing to fight humans, we were busy learning from our new allies. The Crystalline Collective taught us about manipulating space-time through refraction. The Nebula Collective showed us how to exist in multiple states simultaneously. The Silicon Consciousness helped us process battlefield data in new ways. The hybrid fleet moved with impossible precision, each ship capitalizing on the strengths of multiple species technologies while covering for their weaknesses. The crystalline distortion field prevented the Drachnid ships from coordinating effectively, while the human-led coalition struck from multiple vectors simultaneously. In the council chamber, the assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded. The Voidwalker representatives' form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Fascinating," they whispered. "They didn't just form alliances. They created synthesis." Sarah nodded. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, our determination, or even our adaptability. It's our ability to learn from others, to take different ideas and combine them into something new. We don't just survive together, we evolve together." The display showed Drachnid ships attempting to retreat, their once mighty formation in chaos. Several vessels had been completely immobilized by crystalline formations in space, while others found their advanced targeting systems confused by nebula collective sensor ghosts. "This," Sarah continued, "is why we survived on our death world. Not because we were the best at anything, but because we learned to be good at everything by working together. We turned predators into companions, rivals into allies, and challenges into opportunities." She turned to face the council, her expression both serious and hopeful. "The Drachnids want to teach the galaxy about strength through dominance. We propose something different. Strength through unity. They fight to prove their superiority. We fight to prove that we're stronger together than we ever could be alone." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, representatives began to signal their agreement. The Voidwalker representative was the last, their shadowy form seeming to smile. "Perhaps," they mused, "we have all been underestimating the true nature of evolution. It seems humanity has much to teach us about adaptation through cooperation." As the Coalition fleet secured their victory at Proxima, a new chapter in galactic history began. The species that had evolved on a death world had just shown the galaxy a new kind of strength, one built not on domination, but on the power of working together. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood in the ruins of his War Council chamber, his scales dark with rage as he reviewed the battle footage from Proxima. The living metal walls around him pulsed with his fury, reflecting his emotional state. "They turned our strength against us," he snarled, "made a mockery of our tactical superiority. But they forget. We still have numbers. We still have our ultimate weapon." Zyra, her gravity disk crackling with nervous energy, approached cautiously. "Supreme Commander, the World Breaker has never been tested on a planet with Earth's unique characteristics. The simulations suggest victory." He cut her off. "Prepare the fleet. All of it. We will show these humans what true power looks like." On Earth, in the Combined Defense Force headquarters, General Rodriguez studied the massive holographic display showing the approaching Drachnid armada. It was the largest fleet concentration ever recorded in galactic history. Over 10,000 capital ships, with the massive form of the Worldbreaker at its center. "Well," she said, taking a long sip of cold coffee, "they certainly know how to make an entrance." Ambassador Vixterra's crystalline form trembled slightly. "General, the Worldbreaker is designed to destabilize a planet's core. Even if you survive its attack, Earth could be rendered uninhabitable." "Bold of them to assume we haven't been living on an uninhabitable planet this whole time," Rodriguez replied with a grim smile. She turned to Captain Chen, who had just entered the command center. "Status of Operation Pandora." Sarah's eyes gleamed with that peculiar mix of exhaustion and excitement that seemed uniquely human. The silicon consciousness finished the calculations. "It's possible, but it's completely insane," finished Dr. Patel, the lead scientist of Project Pandora, as he hurried into the room clutching a tablet. "We'd be deliberately destabilizing the planetary core ourselves, using the existing fault lines as waveguides to channel the energy. If our timing is off by even a microsecond, then we'll have done the Drachnid's job for them." Rodriguez nodded. "Sounds about right for a human plan. Ambassador, how are the evacuation efforts proceeding?" Vixterra's form shifted to a concerned blue. "Most non-essential personnel have been moved to secure locations off-world. But General, you can't seriously be considering fighting fire with fire." Rodriguez finished. "Ambassador, do you know why humans survived on Earth? Because we learned to use our planet's deadliness to our advantage. Those earthquakes you found so terrifying. We studied them until we understood plate tectonics. Those storms, we learned to predict them, then to harness their energy." She gestured to the tactical display. "The Drachnids think they can threaten us with our planet's own geology. They're about to learn why that's a mistake." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. As the Drachnid fleet approached, humanity showed why they had thrived on their death world. Teams worked in shifts, pushing past normal endurance limits. The silicon consciousness marveled at how humans seemed to become more focused as fatigue set in, accessing reserves of strength that their biosigns suggested shouldn't exist. When the Drachnid fleet arrived, Vexthor was surprised to find Earth's orbital defense grid completely powered down. The planet's massive network of satellites and platforms hung dark and silent in space. "It appears they've accepted their fate," he said, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. "Prepare the Worldbreaker. Let's show them what happens to those who defy the natural order." The Worldbreaker, a massive construct of dark energy and living metal, began to power up. Its central core glowed with malevolent purpose as it prepared to send a devastating pulse into Earth's planetary core. In her command center, now relocated to a hardened bunker deep within Cheyenne Mountain, Rodriguez watched the enemy weapon charge. "You know," she said conversationally to her staff, "humans have this old saying about the definition of insanity, doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results." She keyed her calm. "Dr. Patel, are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be," came the scientist's tense reply. "Though I still think this is crazy." "Noted," Rodriguez smiled. "Execute Operation Pandora." Across Earth's surface, hundreds of specially designed devices activated simultaneously. Each one had been placed along major fault lines, their positions calculated by the silicon consciousness with quantum precision. As the Worldbreaker fired its planet-killing beam, something unexpected happened. The beam struck Earth's surface, but instead of penetrating straight to the core, it encountered a network of deliberately destabilized fault lines. The planet's own geological structure, carefully prepared by human engineers, acted as a complex series of waveguides. In orbit, Vexthor watched in horror as the energy from his ultimate weapon was caught in Earth's crustal matrix, following paths that humans had spent hours preparing. The power meant to destroy the planet was instead channeled, redirected, and reflected. "Impossible," he breathed, watching as the energy built up in Earth's crust. "They've weaponized their planet's instability." "That's not all we've weaponized," Rodriguez's voice came over all frequencies. You see, Commander, living on a death world taught us something important. There's no such thing as an unsurvivable situation. There are just situations we haven't adapted to yet. The energy reached critical mass. Earth's fault lines lit up like a global circuit board, and then, in a display that would be studied by xenogeologists for centuries to come, the planet itself seemed to fight back. The redirected energy erupted from carefully selected points around the globe, creating a series of focused gravitational anomalies that ripple through space. The Drachnid fleet, caught in the gravitational storm, found their ships being torn apart by the same forces they had tried to use against Earth. The Worldbreaker, target of the main gravitational pulse, began to break apart under stresses its designers had never imagined possible. This is what you never understood about humans, Rodriguez continued, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around her. We don't just survive our death world. We learned from it. Every natural disaster taught us something. Every challenge made us stronger. And now you tried to use our planet's core against us. We've been studying that core for centuries. Did you really think we wouldn't have plans for something like this? As the Drachnid fleet disintegrated, Vix Terra turned to Rodriguez in amazement. You intentionally used your planet's deadliest features as a weapon. You risked everything on a plan that any rational species would consider suicidal. That's humanity for you. Rodriguez shrugged, finally allowing herself to slump slightly in her chair. We're too stubborn to know when something's impossible, too adaptable to accept defeat, and just crazy enough to turn our greatest threats into our greatest strengths. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every known spacefaring species crowded the vast space, their environmental bubbles creating a spectacular array of atmospheres, temperatures, and gravity fields. At the center of it all stood a simple wooden podium, a deliberate choice by the human delegation that had many species buzzing with confusion. Sarah Chen, now Admiral of Earth's First Contact Fleet, approached the podium carrying her trademark coffee mug. The simple ceramic vessel had become something of a legend in diplomatic circles, a symbol of humanity's peculiar blend of informality and indomitable spirit. 3 standard galactic months ago, she began, the Drachnid Federation attempted to conquer Earth, believing that our planet's hostile nature made us unfit to govern ourselves. She paused, taking a sip of coffee. That didn't work out so well for them. A ripple of what passed for laughter among various species passed through the chamber. The Voidwalker representative's shadowy form seemed to pulse with amusement. But today isn't about victory, Sarah continued. It's about understanding. The Drachnids weren't entirely wrong. Earth is dangerous. What they failed to grasp is that this danger shaped us into something unique in the galaxy. The main display activated, showing scenes from Earth, children playing in the snow, scientists studying active volcanoes, sailors navigating storm-tossed seas. We humans don't just survive on our death world, Sarah explained. We embrace it. Every challenge it presents becomes an opportunity to learn, to adapt, to grow. But more importantly, we learned that the best way to face these challenges is together. Ambassador Vix Terra floated forward, her crystalline form shimmering with multiple colors. The collective has studied human history extensively since our first contact. What we found most remarkable isn't their physical adaptability or their technological innovations. It's their ability to turn enemies into allies. The display shifted to show the remnants of the Drachnid fleet, but instead of destruction, it showed something unexpected. Human engineers working alongside Drachnid technicians, studying the remains of the Worldbreaker. After their defeat, Vix Terra continued. We expected the humans to demand reparations, to impose harsh terms. Instead, they offered partnership. They saw an opportunity not for dominance, but for growth. Former Supreme Commander Vex Thor, his scales now a humble brown, rather than their previous militant crimson, stepped forward. His massive form seemed somehow less threatening than before, more contemplative. We thought we understood strength, he rumbled. We believed it came from dominance. from proving superiority. The humans taught us something different. Strength comes from adaptation, from cooperation, from turning weaknesses into advantages. The silicon consciousness representatives' optical sensors whirred with interest. Their approach to problem-solving defies conventional logic. When faced with a planet-killing weapon, they used their planet's deadliest features as a defense. It's simultaneously irrational and brilliant. "That's because humans don't just think outside the box," came the ethereal voice of the Void Walker representative. "They question why there's a box in the first place." Sarah smiled. "We had to. On Earth, following conventional wisdom often meant death. We learned to question everything, to try the impossible, to find solutions where none seemed to exist. But most importantly, we learned to do it together." The display showed new images. Human children in a classroom alongside crystalline younglings, Drachnid engineers studying human FTL technology, members of the Nebula Collective exploring Earth's oceans in specially designed containment suits. "This is humanity's true gift to the galaxy," Sarah continued. "Not our technology, not our adaptability, not even our determination. It's our understanding that true strength comes from unity, from combining different perspectives to create something greater than the sum of its parts." She gestured to the wooden podium. "This podium is made from an earth oak tree. The oak grows strong not because it's rigid, but because it's flexible. It bends in the wind, its roots intertwine with other trees, creating a network that strengthens the entire forest. That's how humanity survived on our death world, not by conquering it, but by becoming part of it." The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Then, one by one, representatives began to signal their agreement with the human philosophy. Even the Drachnids, their mighty empire now transformed into a cooperative federation, indicated their support. "The galaxy is entering a new age," Sarah concluded. "Not an age of competition and dominance, but an age of synthesis and cooperation. We invite all species to join us in this journey. After all, if a species from a death world can learn to turn their greatest challenges into their greatest strengths, imagine what we can all achieve together." As the council session ended, different species mingled freely, environmental bubbles adapting to allow closer interaction. The Void Walker representative approached Sarah, their shadowy form rippling with curiosity. "You humans have changed everything," they observed. "The galaxy's entire understanding of strength, survival, and progress has been transformed." Sarah took another sip of her coffee, smiling. "That's what humans do. We adapt, we evolve, we change. But most importantly, we help others do the same. It's how we survived on Earth, and it's how we'll thrive among the stars." Across the chamber, Vix Terra watched as a group of human children demonstrated to young Drachnids how to make paper airplanes, the simple Earth technology fascinating the reptilian youngsters. In another corner, silicon consciousness engineers discussed with human scientists how to combine their quantum processing with human intuitive problem-solving. "Perhaps," Vix Terra mused, her crystalline form glowing with hope, "we needed a species from a death world to teach us how to truly live. Not just to survive, but to thrive through cooperation, adaptation, and the courage to try the impossible." Outside the council chamber, Earth continued its eternal dance around its star, its deadly beauty a reminder of where humanity came from. But now, instead of being seen as a terrifying anomaly, it was recognized as something else, a crucible that had forged not just survivors, but teachers, not just warriors, but unifiers, not just a species, but a bridge between all species. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity did best, changing the impossible into the achievable, one cup of coffee at a time.